If you have any questions, please keep it to the Q&A sessions or drop it down in the chat box. We will have someone to read out loud for you and ask to them. Without further delay, I'd like to give this floor to Dr. Nitra to carry out this discussion.
Very good. Thank you so much, Rich. We will speak in English. I think this is a conversation between Cambodian researcher and researcher from other countries. So please bear that in mind. And for today, for this afternoon, I'm really happy. We have put together some of our experience and a partner collaborator from different country, but also in our own country. And this is, as Rich has mentioned, we are doing quite a lot at CDRI at high level, national, local level conversations and capacity building and training program, both for our staff and our partners. But this series, which we call research professional development, it really a conversations among peers. So it's more targeted to research conversation changing of really personal experience and story about what it's like, what does it take in order to pursue and to maintain inspiration in this kind of career. And that's one of the reasons why today we don't have our own researcher as a speaker, because we want to hear experience and story from other researchers in different contexts. And I will not introduce the speaker. I would give the floor for each speakers about 1 minute each to introduce who they are, what they're working on, and especially if you are a foreigner, why you are here in Cambodia. And then we will have a set of questions that would kind of address the theme for today's discussion, which is about what it's like, what does it take to be a researcher, and then we'll follow with your comment, suggestion, and Q&A. So we'll go from my left. Okay.
Hi everyone, I am Supet. I am a lecturer at the Royal University of Phnom Penh at the Department of Natural Resource Management and Development and the Faculty of Development Studies. I studied geographies as my postgraduate degrees. I did a master in GIS and mappings and my PhD in development geographies. And I look at mainly on the relationship between human and natural resources and the ecology. So, so now what I'm interested in is that the our ecosystems change very quickly, and so is our societies also change with it. So I'm interested in also care about how those changes happen and how researcher can help to balance out the relationship between human and the resource and natures, and also to care who are most likely to be vulnerable to the process of changing. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for that introduction, Nitra and Riek. That was great as well. Thank you. My name's Sabina Lavrenuke. I'm a research fellow at the University of Nottingham in the UK. I've also got quite an interdisciplinary background. So my bachelor degree was in politics. My master degree was in development studies, actually at the Royal University of Phnom Penh here in Cambodia. And my PhD is in geography. So I work on the economic geographies of global supply chains, and especially around women's labor in the garment industry. So Netra asked why I'm in Cambodia. About 25% of all the clothing and footwear that's made in Cambodia goes to buyers, sorry, in the UK. So I'm following those chains and thinking about how our lives in the UK are bound up with the lives of the workers in Cambodia.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Suchita. I'm working as the Deputy Director of the English Language Grade Master of Law program at the Royal University of Law and Economics, and I'm a lecturer teaching legal research and business and human rights. So I recently complete my law PhD at Monash University. My thesis explore access to remedy of victims suffered by corporate land grabbing. My main research is interest involved on the issue of business and human rights, how to help it conduct their operational activity responsibly. So I think that I have some point of research interest with Sabina as well. So it's my pleasure to be here this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kelly Dorkeno. I'm a PhD candidate at Lund University Center for Sustainability Studies. I'm currently in the third year of my studies. And here in Cambodia, I'm a research fellow at CDRI. My topic looks at the influence of climate and climate change on loss and changes in agrarian livelihoods. And how I came to be in Cambodia, I was here 2 years ago to do interviews and to do a pilot study here to see whether Cambodia would be a place where I could do this case. And I met 2 researchers here at CDRI, and that's how I ended up coming back actually for this fellowship.
Anyway, okay. Yeah, no, I think the main topic for today is I can reflect back a little bit to my own personal experience. So fresh from grad school in the US, I applied many jobs, and out of nowhere, I decided to join CDRI as a research associate. And one of the reason maybe not sure is that when I talk to people, nobody really advised me what to expect to join CDI and to be a researcher. And that's what somehow curious kind of wonder inside me, say, why not try? And I try and I stay until 2022. So that's something I want to also hear from our speaker today. What is it about research? What is it about personal experience or role model that actually drawn you and actually keep you in this position, in this role as a researcher? Can you maybe share a little bit from your own experience?
Okay. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't have this wish to become a researcher when I was younger. It wasn't like a dream or anything. It kind of came to be. So I started doing a business degree, mostly because at the time that was the type of degree that gave you the best opportunities professionally. And soon I realized that I wasn't particularly interested in doing that for the rest of my life. And I was lucky enough to be able to switch and to go towards sustainability, environmental policy is what I did my master's in. And then I started working in the private sector a little bit on projects and then for international organization, also on projects related to climate and environment. And I think at the time I felt like both I didn't know enough and I wasn't learning enough. And also a lot of people around me seemed to implement projects without much research evidence to use as a basis for them. So I think that's what pushed me towards research overall. And then I ended up applying for this PhD position. And now I'm in my third year of my PhD studies. So I cannot say I have extensive research experience, but that's what drawn me to this position. And so far I enjoy it.
Great, thank you, Kelly. So, Sunjata?
Thank you for the question. So I think that what that leads me to research, it was my curiosity. So initially I did not have that much interest in human rights. I have 3 bachelor degrees, so it's in yes, in management, economics, and law. So after I did some exchange program in France and then come back to complete my bachelor study in Cambodia, I continued my LLM in international commercial law in the UK. I came back and I started working in a law firm. And during, I think it's around 2013. So in Cambodia, there's a lot of cases involving labor rights violation. So I just kind of become, interested and curious, like why there needs to be like a zero-sum game, like business getting a benefit. We want to attract investment into our country, but why some people they have to be put into the position. So I think that maybe it is I was still young at that time, so I think that it was a great idea if I continue to pursue my study. So I chose business and human rights because I want to make a compromise, to make use of all those degrees. Yeah. So and when I get into it, I become very interested because it is a new subject field in the field of human rights, and there's a lot of cases. And I learned that this is not just challenge facing Cambodia, but many developing country, and I want to be part of the solution to want to help the country to develop, but not at the expense of anything.
Right. So, yeah, Sabina.
Yeah, I think these all work. Thank you. Yeah, it's a really good question, Netra, and really interesting answers. I think that for me as well, when I was young, I also never had the ambition to grow up to become a researcher. Maybe when I was young, I also didn't know what the job of a researcher is. So it's strange to think that we ended up here becoming researchers. I think even when I was a young person, a young child, I was still interested in ideas around social justice. I think the town that I grew up in when I was young in the UK was quite a poor town. So it made me think a lot about inequality and why some people have a worse deal than other people. And yeah, I think maybe when I was choosing my undergraduate degree, I knew that I didn't want to be a business person and make some rich guy richer. So I chose to study politics, right, and try and understand why the world is like it is. Yeah, and maybe now I'm not brave enough to be an activist, just a shy person, but how can we contribute to these objectives of meeting social justice? Well, if we research, we can uncover some injustices and push for some solutions. So it's a good, for someone who's shy, who wants to change the world, maybe they can change the world a little bit through research.
Great, Sabina. So what's your story, Supet?
Yeah, I think we all, I wouldn't want to say on behalf of everyone else, but I think it's come to the point that we don't choose it. It just keep going and then we end up here. But we also share one thing is curiosity, exploring. So what is this? And also the feeling of like, I don't want to be told what I to do for the day. I just want to find out what's going on. So just keep asking the question and try to find the answers. And I find myself very stressful when I have to deal with admin work. It's like, you have to do this. It's like, why do I have to do this? The question coming back up is like, okay, I like freedom, so I like to find out. But of course, there's a lot of challenges of control in research as well that we have to, fundings and listen to the donors and negotiations uh, but I still have the chance to go to the village that I have the space to negotiate what I want to act, what I want to talk about, what I care about. And for me, um, I did my undergraduate in environmental studies. I grew up in Kampot towns. It was a town back then, but only 2 kilometers from Bogo National Park. It was in a national park, maybe not back then, but every morning there's a little market in front of my house. The people in the near the mountain bring all the wild forest, wild animals, and sell and spirit chips, and would grab these wild longans like for morning snacks. And I really find it very amazing. The nature gives me so much for fun. And I don't find any packaged snacks more attractive than those wild longans or wild jackfruits. Like, oh, these are from the forest. This is not from the farm. And it's like, okay, nature is such an amazing thing. And I went my undergraduate in Tonle Sap and all the forests. I keep exploring different relationship between human and ecologies, and it makes me so happy at the same time, so concerning that it's changing so fast, and some people become so vulnerable to it, and they have to move out of it. They have to, uh, you know, uh, uh, reallocate their labors. The children work in the city, the parents stay at home, take care of the grandchildren. And if the ecology is there and people can live together and they don't have to move out, I think that might be a happier. I'm not saying it's happier, but I moved out, but I'm still happy. But I would say I'm so fortunate to be here, to be a researcher, and I don't think a lot of people are as fortunate as I am and as we are here. So I think that I hope that my observations, my skill to observe and find the answer can help to a few people to go through this better. Yeah, thank you.
Wow, unbelievable, right? When you hear all these personal journeys and story, I think it does reflect the diversity. Just both, I was international researcher and I was Cambodian. What it kind of show and to me is that it's really personal. It's really something that quite passionate what they are doing and working on. And at the same time also, I think these kind of ideas about linking research to social issues and how you can actually play a role in addressing some of those bigger challenges and problems beyond your own study or project. And that actually can connect very well to my second question, which is really, like we also in this field that we value education. And example, Sujita, she has 3 bachelor degree, a master, 1 or 2 master, and a PhD. So my question is, so in order for you to be a researcher, what does it really take? Is it just hard work, studying? I mean, they actually kind of alert earlier, to this also personal interest and commitment. But what does it really take if somebody now in their high school year or doing their college degree, if they listen to us, what would be our advice to them? Like, what does it take if you want to be a researcher? Just studying, or what should they be also be thinking in planning their career moving forward? Who would like to do that first to answer that question? Sabina, you want-
Hi. Another really good question. I think, like Supayak mentioned earlier, that one thing we have to acknowledge is that we're really lucky to be researchers. And so one of the reasons that I can sit on this stage and tell you about my career as a researcher is that my mom and dad paid for my university education, and then they paid for my master education, and then they paid for my PhD education. Some people probably are not as lucky as us to be able to eventually sit here and have a career as a researcher, like Supayak says, that gives us a lot of freedom and independence. But then for ourselves as well, I guess, just because you have a degree doesn't mean you're going to be a successful researcher. And actually, being a researcher is kind of a crazy job, right? You said a lot of people don't know what a researcher does. But like sometimes I think, what does a researcher not do? We need to write our research questions, go out and collect our data. We need to be able to write well so we can write publications, but not just for our peers, but also for policymakers and for the public so we can engage them on our issues. We need to be able to write funding applications to convince people to give us the money to do our research projects. We need to be able to, speak in public so we can share our ideas with other people as well. So I think that, yeah, there's lots of different skills that you need to make a successful research career. Maybe you don't need all of them. It's just helpful if you have some of them and you know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and you know which bits of your career you can, on. If for a lot of people in research careers, teaching careers as well. So we have a lot of different skills. I think it's important to know what your skills are, and there's probably a research career that you can build around that skill set that you have.
Thank you, Sakita, please.
So I'll just add on what Sabina had just said. So I think that first of all, you need to be curious. You need to be critical. You cannot be readily accept whatever is given to you. You need to start ask for justification, like what is the rationale behind everything. So you have to also have a passion, because research is hard work and it's not always, it takes time. The outcome is rewarding if you have your paper published and if it has any impact, on solving some social problem. But the process, the journey to get to that, it could be very time consuming. And sometimes if you're thinking about doing a PhD research, which may take like 4 or 5 years, so you have to make sure that you love, what you're doing. Otherwise, you will wake up every morning hating yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Please, Kelly.
I can add to that. I fully agree. I think motivation is key, like finding a topic that you love, but then also finding people to surround yourself with, so collaborating and finding the right village to help you go through it, I think is really important. So that's all I would say.
Now the joy is for Supayak to finish the.
Yeah, I think the curiosity is important, and as a human being, we need to work in life, not in career, and career have to fit in our life, not to. And sometimes we fit the life into the career, but then the career has to be meaningful to the life back, and also financially supportive to our life and families, and then it's sort of become more intimate. I find that people have families that it's harder to do fieldwork. You need to focus more on the financial aspects of it, and you have less option what to do. So I think our life play a very important role in how we move toward the research, and for me, it somehow it chose me. So I'm very fortunate, but at the same time, I think it just keep going that direction that I didn't even choose, but maintain the curiosity and the energies, and living in the situation that it provide me enough financial support to go through it. So I think we can't apply one person life circumstance to another that it won't work that way. But each of us have to have the ability to assess and also to move in our life path, and then we can, fit that into that. And yeah, curiosities and energies and finance should be key. Yeah, thank you.
Very well put. So my next question would be, now that they decide and they have become researchers, what are some of the kind of let's start with difficulty or challenges, and actually you raised quite a number already in the previous two question, but maybe just this time maybe just highlight some of that are quite applicable, maybe applicable to Cambodian context and Cambodian researcher, because we all know that research context in Cambodia is different from context in Sweden, in Finland. So from your own observation and working here, let's just discuss a little bit what are some of the key challenges now that we are doing research and choosing research as our career operating in Cambodia. We have a lot from our own as well as CDRI researcher, but I think for now, I think would like to maybe hear a little bit of the broader context, especially I think from you, Sujita and Pek. You're at Cambodia leading public university, Royal University Phnom Penh and Royal University of Law. You're combining teaching, administration, and research, and many other things. What does it like for you to actually manage this really insightful?
It is very challenging because I'm still, at my early stage of research career. So I'm also like working, running a master of law programs and teach at the same time. So I think one of the most challenging is time management, because after completing my PhD, I aim to publish my PhD into a book, and that was now, why it's not going to happen anytime soon, because when I start my job, I have to, be responsible, take some responsibility on my job, and then I teach legal research to students. And I now, feel what my supervisor gone through. So I have to read, their research proposal, try to help them identify the research problem, research questions, and so on and so forth. And I feel like I'm supervising, master thesis. So I don't have that much time, and we are all human. We only have 24 hours. So my own research work, has been pushed. And I hope that after the end of the term, I can go back to my unfinished paper and then start revising. But it's very difficult. And another challenge is the lack of resources, because our university do not have access to international journal or that type. So sometimes I need to ask help from my friends, in Australia to get me some resources. And we also do not have a lot of expert in at least in my field, business and human rights is still a very new field in Cambodia, and I'm considered as one of, the scholar in the business and human rights. Well, I feel like I'm not yet, a baby in kind of research experience in this. So yeah, that's why many challenges that we have.
Wow, great. Yeah, you want to build on?
Yeah, I think so. You said you were a baby. I think as a researcher, we grow up too slow. Some people in their early 40s, they start early in my career. Like, oh, my friend's already a manager at this company. We always like think that we are a young researcher, but like, we're not that young. And but I think as a local researcher, we face different challenges compared to international researchers that honestly, I'm in one of the biggest university in Cambodia, but in terms of funding for research, it's not that much. So we depend on the funding from the outside, and the funding usually come already with some form of condition, and sometimes they already define what they want to look at. So when we talk about freedom, it's within what is already, on top of it. So sometimes I can't choose what I want to look at. Uh, I can reject, refuse not to take on the project that I don't like. But sometimes the theme is there, and you have to navigate. Like, I want to answer it that way, not the way you want me to. And sometimes even then it's become a fight internally. Like, so what? Yeah, the more I do research, the more I find that um, uh, the more I find the meaningful in it, the harder to choose what is meaningful for me to do research on. And information become knowledge become power, and it also, if we are not careful enough with things that we know, and we impose a certain form of knowledge into the villages that already have a lot of knowledge and intellect to deal with the environmental issues, and they have been living there for centuries, and they had been doing okay until it's not okay, but it's not because of them, because of, so what is my knowledge gonna change there? So I'm very careful and become more and more careful about uh, what is the meaningful research. When you talk about impacts, is now I even more careful about, if it doesn't need to be changed, then don't change it. If it doesn't, the knowledge doesn't have to be revealed, then don't reveal it. So those one is the key issue is the ethical issues, and the second one is the I think financial issues that, and all interrelated, and also political issues that we live in the place that have national politics, that have international, regional politics, and those are all come together, and we have to navigate ourselves through. And today things change very fast in terms of politics. We look at the war in Ukraine is also impacting my mental well-being if I care so much about what's going on in the world. And you look at COVID, it stopped all the things, stopped everything, and we had to find new ways to do it. So how to deal with this constant changing that is so interconnected, is so emotionally consuming, is a challenge for me personally if you want to do research ethically and meaningfully.
Yeah. So Sabina and Kelly, please add what you have experienced in terms of challenge.
Yeah, I mean, just to build on the two comments that we've already had, that, it's not always a friendly place to be a young researcher. If you want to be a researcher, you're going to get a lot of rejections from journals and from job applications and from funding applications. So, if you just have to have resilience basically, and keep going, because there aren't enough opportunities for everyone. So even if you're a great researcher, there are some opportunities that you will miss out on, because there aren't enough jobs and there aren't enough places to publish in papers, and there aren't enough funding opportunities. And the other thing, yeah, is time. I saw a good tweet that I liked on the way over here that said, we have so many projects. When we finish one, we don't even celebrate, because we still feel guilty that we had 4 deadlines that we missed last week. So we kind of live on the constant feeling like we're not doing enough, and we get a lot of rejections. So it's just about making sure that, that that you're still a good person and that you're a competent researcher, even when you get kicked a lot in your early career.
Kelly.
I don't know if I have much to add, but perhaps I can mention the pressure to publish. I think as a PhD, but also as a researcher in general, I don't know about in Cambodia, but at least in Sweden, there is much more expectations in relation to how much you publish, where you publish, and that I wouldn't say make or break a career, but kind of like you're expected to do all the things that Sabina was mentioning, communicating, being on Twitter, all of these things. It's a lot of pressure, and so you don't get to choose sometimes, like in terms of what type of topics you're touching upon because of that. So that can be a big challenge, I would say.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I can share my own PhD dissertation, never get into book form, although I have contract with the publisher. How bad is that? To be honest. I doubt it. Maybe a new book, not my PhD. I think it's too outdated. You know, it was studied in 2011 something, so it's too outdated. It has to be a new book, not that one. Yeah. No, I mean what they have discussed and shared is not too different from what we as researcher at CDRI. I think we can go on further discuss this. How it is to be under time pressure, making multiple projects, meeting donor report, finance and technical, all sorts of things that's going on in our daily life. But let's also talk about something that we as researchers enjoy. You know, what is it that we really enjoy? And for me personally, I think one of the reason, if I can share here, that keep me here, keep me at CDI and keep me a researcher here in Cambodia is that the ability really to ask questions that you think other people has not thought of. And that's what I mean. Also kind of set across the room here is that kind of personal level of freedom of what it is you're able to do, to contribute, to kind of provide a bit of information and analysis to other people to know. That's what we at CDRI. But I think it's playing a little bit now that I'm the right director. I think now for me it's more to do with opportunity to work with Cambodia, a new generation who motivated to become the next generation of researcher. That's also really very important for me being here at CDRI. But for our speaker here, maybe I want you to maybe share and reflect a little bit, like how you kind of have any moment in life, like you're like, aha, this is really something that's gonna keep me in this job for a long while, or is that, or you've been thinking, this is so challenging. Next week I'm gonna go and look for other job. Opening up, right? So let's talk about a little bit about what do you think your contribution is really to the field, to your country, or to humanity at large, or is it something very personal, the achievement and the moment, the work that you're doing every day, you know, staying up all night doing so many degrees. It would be really quite interesting for each person to kind of know a little bit. Yeah.
I remember a good friend of mine in Australia said, after I finished my PhD, I thought I'm going to find out about something very exciting, but I found out about myself more than anything else. So she spent a lot of time doing research on genders and how she sees women and how she sees herself is all the same thing for her, you know. And for me, it's also when I like to spend time in the villages. I'm an ethnographer, and whenever I get to time to be in, usually I sleep with the people in the village with a family or something. And when I look at their life and I look at my family life, sometimes I miss some part of it. Sometimes I just want to be a part of it. It's just like family, you know. And the more it just the way people express their emotion, love, and what they need and how to get the need met, and how the family organize and how it relate to the environment. And I remember one time I was in Stantrang and with a family, and when I feel like I was so comfortable with it. It's not that because of me as much. It's also because I was so reluctant. It's also because the family feel very home, and so they make me feel home and they make me feel so welcome. And so they just look at me. It's like they trust me. They said I don't know what you do, but I cannot trust you. And so so before I was like running to the field to do like a data collection in the forest. It's very hot, and the landlady, the ladies who live in the house, like, you forget your water, right? I was like, oh, okay, I forgot my waters. the caring, it just make me feel so connected and make me feel so safe. And looking for that safety as a person, and being able to spend time in the field and safely express myself and feel intimately connected with nature and with community, make me feel very lucky that I can be in someone else's life, which is not too different from my life. And I can't wait to go to the field whenever I can. But and also come back to Phnom Penh and to the city to talk to my friend what I learn and what I know, and then also what makes my knowledge more unique, because I am in it, and what I'm in it is so different to what anyone else in it. So when I say some things about what I found out, is, I wouldn't say it's unique in some way, but it have its own authenticity, and it helped me to go through that. When people talk to me, they feel that they know some things from and that is original and authentic. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think, like Supayak, also the field work is the thing that is the most important thing that we do. I think often I want to quit. I wake up every Tuesday and I think I want to quit. It's too much work. I could get paid more money if I worked in a different sector. But then, I go to the field work and I talk to people. They tell me about their problems, and then their problems are so much bigger than my problems, and it makes me angry. And then, yeah, I think that the important thing we can do as researchers is we can hear their stories, and we can help them take their stories to people who can listen and make change. So after I hear their stories, I worry less about my problems and more about their problems, and we have to keep going on with the research.
For me, I think that suit my personality. I'm a curious person and introvert. So I think that I like, to share my thought and trying to solve social problem and how, if I can make some people's life better, but I may not be brave enough, to go and be an advocate. On the other hand, I'm more hesitant, so to try to understand the root cause of the problem, propose some solution so that, all every stakeholders can use it and solve actual problem. Um, I also like teaching, so I think that I kind of get, the best out of it. I like to research, right? But I also like teaching, so I can share my knowledge, including research skills with my students. And I find, this part job, even though it's hard work, and it's not most of the things that I'm busy, it's going on. So my family does not really understand why I'm already, busy and still quite broke. So, but it's kind of rewarding, and to be a young Cambodian scholar in the field of business and right, and to be recognized. I was invited to present my PhD at Oxford University, and also join a panel to discuss on some of the urgent or important issues, but that involve business community, not only in Cambodia but in Thailand. So I find that this job is exciting. This is something that makes me interested, and it's true. It's very much true.
It's hard to go after this. I guess when I think of the job of a researcher, I see it as, to some extent, the role of an observer. Like research academia is observing society, also the natural world and so on, but often societal processes. And when you feel a bit frustrated about how little change sometimes you feel you're making, I try to think of it as a work of documenting as well. So all of these books, all of these things, they will stay after, the researchers who wrote them are gone. So there's also that part of it that I enjoy, is to think that these things will stay and they will be read eventually by someone, and they will foster learning and foster more researchers and more understanding of the world. So that's the big picture. And then on a personal level, I think, just as my colleague here mentioned, I really enjoy the teaching. So even though I haven't done a whole lot, master supervision, I found that really rewarding. And also course coordination, I find that that's the time in my career where I can actually see the impact directly. Because often when you write papers and you do other things, you don't necessarily see it. Like just it goes out and perhaps something will come out of it. But when you teach, it comes back directly. So I would just say that. Thank you.
Fantastic. I mean, this is really remarkable to actually hear different stories, quite diverse. At the same time, there are quite a lot of commonality theme come across with personally, family-wise, and recognitions of the work, but also just a personal passion on subject that you're working on. That is really great to hear. I would like now to invite participants through Zoom or here in our library to pose a number of questions or even just speak and share your own experience. I think this is a forum where we would like to see researcher sharing and discussing each other stories. So who would like to share or to ask any question to our speaker? Yes, I think I would really like to hear from our researcher here. Why you want to become a researcher at CDRI? Who would like to go first? And then ask a question to our speaker.
Hi. I want, before I ask the question direct to the speaker, I want to share a little bit of my like passions. Like I actually have background in law and business. At first, because like all my family members, they pursue their career in law. So most of them would normally advise me to either become like a lawyer or a judge, but I still doubt whether that is really something that I want to do for the rest of my life. And I've been like moving around from place to place because I want to find something that really keep me happy and really like encourage me to wake up every morning to come to work and do something that can impact the whole society. And because of that, I heard from some of my colleagues and also my professor. He said if I love something that can provide like impactful solution to society, that could be you can become a researcher because like that not only affect like the way that you think and analyze stuff, but it also linked to something that you have learned so far. Although like your background is more likely like business and law, but there's some area that you can combine this and apply to like the real problem and suggest solution to like people who can make like some change to society. But my question to the speaker is that when you were around like around my age, is there like was there some time that you doubt your passion and whether you want to stop or like maybe there's some challenges that really make you like don't want to like pursue your career? Yes, that's all.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, please. But we should maybe take on one at a time or do one at a time. Okay, so please. Was there any time when you were just doing your PhD or something that you said, this is not worth it? Maybe business entrepreneurs.
Yeah, sure, actually, because so when I just finished my PhD, So I have a PhD, I had lots of publications, writing a book, but I cannot find a job for 2 years. So I had no money. One time I had 84p in my bank account. So yeah, it was very challenging, and yeah, I think one of the difficulties for early career researchers is making the transition if you have a PhD and then finding your first job in the university, because like I say, there's not a lot of jobs and there's a lot of people with PhDs who want research careers, so it's hard to find that first foot on the ladder. Yeah, so I think like everyone said before, it's not enough just to have some qualifications and you have some curiosity. You really need motivation and yeah, be sometimes this work, it doesn't love you, but if you keep going, maybe you're going to get that first step on the ladder, and then things are a little bit better from there.
I mean, I'm in the process of my PhD, so I can definitely say yes, there are like ups and downs, and definitely days where you think, oh, really, is this worth it? Also, if you worked before and like the benefits of other sectors, then you even, think even more of that. Like, what did I give up on and so on. But like was mentioned, like there are things that keep you in it. Like, so the motivation comes from curiosity, the care you have for the people that you work with, the collaborations, the opportunities that are quite unique also, and the contribution that you think you're making. So I think, and my husband is also a researcher, so I often turn to him and I say, oh, like he just finished his PhD, and I'm in this process still. So I just go up and down, and we keep thinking of like, you just have to accept that it's going to be up and down, like, to some extent, and mostly in all careers or all sectors, you will feel that. But it's difficult also to accept it. But I would say that's the easiest way to keep going, is the motivation, and to accept that not every day will be rosy and great.
I agree with everyone. Like there's a lot of up and downs, in a PhD study, and if you are unlucky and do not have that supervisor life, will be even more even harder. But I think that there is not really a big problem for you to become depressed, because people they have their own time, and to be able to pursue and complete a PhD, you have gained a lot of transferable skills that could be used, could help you to succeed in most careers. You can become a lawyer. Also, if you have a PhD, you can do both research, yeah, and solve legal cases. The only perhaps some potential problem in Cambodia is that with a PhD and you want to work in law, and you may be like overqualified. Some people will be a little bit hesitant, to take it. But I don't think that it is a problem. Like it's from my experience, my PhD was not that great, was not rosy at all. But if I could, turn back time, I think I would have just, did the same thing. I was offered a very tempting promotion, before my PhD, but I decided to go with my curiosity and, want to continue to study, and then I can come back with my career and just focus on it. So yeah, try to look on the right side.
Yeah, I think usually what people don't usually talk about is our curiosity in a certain thing have its own limit, its energy that come with it. So you don't keep it so long. If it's so long, your energy get drained, and you just want to get it out, but you can't finish it. You indulge in it for so long enough to feel like, oh, I love the topic, but at some point it's just too big, or it's, you just can't finish it, and at some point it takes so much energy you want to give up. It's like, I want to give up. It's too much. I'm not going anywhere. It's been what, 6 years now. For me, I don't have that experience, but what's good for me is that how I manage relationships. So with my supervisor, with my friends, with my peers at the university, who to go to ask when I have these particular problems. And honestly, like it emotionally up and down. And so if I need to talk to a therapist at school, I went to a therapist and talked with them. So I think that you have to know and build up enough relationship with different sources so that it become your support systems, and treat each of them with respect. Even I don't see that going to the gyms after work is to complement my PhD. I enjoy the gyms. I enjoy seeing people there. And PhD and the gym, none of them is more important than others, because you just don't want to put everything in one bucket. So you diversify your interests, and then and then you treat your friend like your friend. They're not there to help you to finish a PhD, but if they're there, it's already helping with your PhD. So I think that good relationship with a supervisor is really important. My friend said it's like if it doesn't work out, it looks like you are going through a divorce. It's so painful. So just that is so important. And even how to approach my supervisor, I had to ask his friends nearby, like, how do I work with that particular academic? What is his style? How can I approach him? And that helped a lot in the way of understanding the person that you're working with. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I learned from this conversation, really being true to yourself, because there are definitely times where, it's really hard. But knowing this is going to fulfill you, and this is what you're going to kind of find way to overcome. The next question, please.
Okay, so we've got 3 questions in Zoom, but he or she directed to our communication officer. So I will read out loud here. So the first question might be can be directed to Dr. Supaya. So as you said that doing research requires financial stability, and how can we motivate young people to learn to get involved in more research sector if they're not financially independent yet? And what if their family cannot support them?
Being a researcher is not for everyone. If it doesn't work out, find something else. And I don't see it as a life sentence for me either. If at some point in life it doesn't work out, I am happy to change. So I think don't make yourself being a researcher just this is who I am. It's not an identity. It's something you like to do. And if you're curious, you work in as a gardener, you look at the grass and you like to know how the grass works with insects and all those. It's enough to maintain what you want to know, how the worlds work. So I always have the problem with people said, I want to be a researcher, but I don't know what that is. No one know what that is until they get into it. So find out and don't fix it that you have to be a researcher. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And again, in Cambodia, fortunately and also unfortunately, um, our academic space is not as competitive as in Europe or in the US. That is, academics are not the one who get paid the highest, but they're still fighting for it. And the percentage of people successfully in academic career in the US, my friends in the US, in the UK, tell me that it's so competitive, but I don't feel the same pressures in Cambodia that I am not being valued in Cambodia as a researcher is so valuable, and I appreciate that. So I think but again, don't make it an identity. You don't want to be respected by being a researcher. You want to be a researcher because it supports your life. You want to be a researcher because it is what you like to do. But if you think that, oh, now it's a researcher, it becomes so prestige and everyone like to have a PhD and sit and talk like this. But that might be not a right motivation. Just and again, education, honestly, it becomes so speculative that you have to get a PhD, you have to get this and this, you get to do a PhD, and then you become a very smart person. But it shouldn't be that way. And yeah, again, in short, it shouldn't be about finding someone to identify ourselves with. And there's so many things that come with it. that help our life to move forward. And then if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Thank you.
Okay. Do any one of you want to add more on that? If not, I can move to the next question. Okay, so the next question is, what do you think that Cambodia still lacks in terms of research field? And what do you think the government and university should do in order to improve research field in the country? Anyone can answer this. What do you think that Cambodia still lacks in terms of research field? Yeah. And what do you think government and university should do in order to improve research field in the country?
Well, I can start with the perspective from CDRI. We're still lacking research on so many fields in Cambodia. I think look around, there are very few of us. There's an indicator of how many researchers per 1 million. I think we are one of the lowest of globally. So there's no doubt. And also in terms of just publication, data that we can kind of safely use to help us inform in our analysis and decision. There's still a lot need to be gathered and shared across the board. The role of the government really important. I think my collaboration in many countries in this region and globally suggests that research need to be funded by public money, state budget. The way we work right now, that's one of the constraints Suchita and Supet saying, and reflect with our own experience in CDI too. It's still highly donor driven and highly funded by external fund. And that's why we have the challenge of maintaining, securing long-term Cambodian researcher to commit in this field, because they're just not enough to go in depth in the area you want to pursue, because if the funding is moving from poverty to climate change, then the researcher who start career in poverty no longer has a job. So that is really key, I think, for the government to really providing secure long-term state funding to Cambodian researcher so that they can start develop longer-term expertise in the area. Please, our speaker.
Yeah, I think you're right, Nitra, because another thing I really love about the work that I do is working with people like you and Riek and TV. Like, there's lots of really talented young researchers in Cambodia, but I think the answer to this question, the answer to the previous question are quite similar, right? That how can we, support researchers to develop if there's not enough funding there to do that? And that is obviously, it's a major barrier for researchers everywhere, but it's particularly acute in Cambodia. And if we want Cambodian researchers to develop independent research agendas and, like Sapiek says, pursue their own independent research, not just to answer the questions that someone's written in the UK or Europe or the USA, but to be able to follow their own passions and motivations and drive a research agenda that's relevant for Cambodia and driven by Cambodian people for Cambodian people, then that's not going to happen without proper research funding. So for sure, that would be something that would really boost and let people in Cambodia, let Cambodians reach that full potential that they quite clearly have.
Right. So the lack of financial support is like one of the overarching limitations for research, and I think there's also at university level there is still a lack of support for research for both professors. Like, they need more training about research methodology. They also need some need to be provided some incentive so that they can invest their time into writing paper and publish. There is also a lack of training of research quality research for the students or encouragement for students to practice rather than just to take the coursework and take and as I mentioned earlier, there is a huge lack of resource access to the literature. So that's not much that we can do in Cambodia, but if there's a lack of researchers, we don't have a lot of paper written by Cambodian scholars. So we still rely on our Western scholars who do not know really about our context. So yeah, that's why we
No, I don't have much to add.
I think, say, like we talk about this control over from the top about research topics and what matters. And I think what matters should come from specific context and geographies. So as geographer, we know that different places have different issues and people value different things differently. So the research topic should be defined by the people who are living in there or the need of particular places. So I think as long as we develop a skill to understand the grounds as grounded as possible, then the research matters would represent itself what matters. But what the issues now is a lot of research topic defined by the global north, which is what matters is economies and all the regional politics stuff. But like I told earlier, I didn't know how much important just drinking water to the villager. They just look at me, it's like, you forget your drinking water. It's like, yeah, that's what life is about for them, and drinking water is important. And so how do we develop that from the ground, that what matters to people, and do we need to upscale it or we don't have to? So those ground doesn't come with the solution, but come with a deep, a real understanding of what matters. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next, the last one. It's more of a technical question. So the participant says she or he has difficulty in accessing to literature reviews while doing their research. But so she asked, what are your suggestions on what to do with it if the topic has yet to be investigated before, or is it hard to find literature reviews to support the research?
Please come to CDRI library. I think we do have. Why you laughing? This is not promotion. This is not promotion of CDI library. Okay, this is not. I mean it. I sincerely mean it. Look around. We have so many books physically and online, and we do try our best. And we have Michovi, who is the librarian, who is really dedicated and know her resource really well. So come and use it. The other suggestion I would like the speaker to add.
I am so bad at literature review, so I usually start with that. So when I got to the ground, I look for what matters, and I come back and look for what literature that fit into what I want to say and what people want to say. So literature review should, for me personally, should define what you should look at. And there are texts. People interpret text in millions ways. It doesn't have to be one way. You said there was no one research on this, and you ask 1,000 other people. They said it's already spoken about, so it's so subjective. I think that's that. Yeah, I find the question it's hard to answer, but at the same time it's so easy to answer because it's just that it's not one way to look at literature reviews. Yeah.
I think I was just going to say the same thing, really, that there's a lot of information that's written down, but there's more information in the world that is not written down. And as well as coming to, the CDRI library, there's CDRI researchers and there's researchers all around Cambodia and other places as well that have excellent knowledge of real issues on the ground. So it doesn't make information more valuable because it's written down. Actually just talking to people and sharing knowledge with each other is a really useful way of getting a good understanding of any topic and context, and you can get more information from people sometimes than you can get just from books.
Right. So I think that if you find yourself do not really are not able to find published literature, scholar articles to read. You can start readings like research study by international or local NGO, but you have to be aware, keep asking yourself whether there is any, hidden agenda, whether or not this information is like updated, relevant. So all those type of questions. There are, it depends on, each and every field. So there are kind of associations, of scholars that they come together. They sometimes they have blogs. If I think like in my field, they thanks to campus university, so they have these business and human rights core blogs. So there's a lot of publicly available, updated literature, written on the issue on business and human rights. The UN is also working on this issue. So there's a lot of free, publicly, available sources. But I think that if you start, continue to do research, trying to find the source, even just use Google Scholars or just Google, it will lead you to somewhere.
I think I actually forgot the question, but I'm gonna summarize what I remember. So I think, as was mentioned earlier, you have to decide why you're doing that literature review in the first place. So what you're trying to do and trying to say, and if that's the best way to do it. Then if you have to do one, come to the CDRI library, talk to the librarian. That's what I've been told all the time. Talk to the librarian. They are wizards, exactly. And then you can also find some online courses, I think Coursera, on doing literature reviews that could be useful. And know that there are different types of literature reviews. I just did one, that's why I'm quite, yeah, I don't like them either. But if you have to do one, you can choose the one that makes more sense as well, and the publication if you have to publish. So, for instance, you have critical reviews where you're trying to highlight the gaps. You have systematized review, you have those that are more like meta-analysis. So try to choose quite carefully what the literature review will do for your research and what format you want to do it in.
So that you will share to our speakers with our final.
So thank you for a very nice discussion. So as a junior research. Right. So again, thank you for a very nice discussions. And as a junior researcher, we find it very interesting. And of course, it does help us a lot. I have a very short question. So I believe that we all mentioned doing research somehow have up and down. And of course, there are times when you want to give up, and there are times that you just want to, nah, I'm not going to do it anymore. So what are the source of your motivations? What keep you on going? Like let's just say maybe it can be from your family factor or from other source. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Sekha. That's a really good question to close the speaker. Our discussion. I think I'll give the floor to our four speakers to respond, but also to say, to share something before we close this.
I think it's a mix. There are some parts that were already there before you start, whether it's a PhD or a research career. Like some things like curiosity will sometimes drive you to keep going. Sometimes it's just, it can be a financial or material security point of view. Maybe you want to give up, but you can't because you can't afford to. I mean, you have to be honest. And then there is, of course, what made you come into this position in the first place. So whether it is, addressing social justice issues or a topic that you really care about, or just achieving, because sometimes in my case, a PhD it's a process, but it's also a step towards something else. Like in some institutions, you have to have it if you want to work, like at the intersection of policy and research, which is what I want to do. So that's also like the end goal. So then you have to continue and pick up yourself and, okay, this is what I need to do. So it can come from different places depending on what challenges of the day you're facing, I would say.
So I think it's very important for you to like the topic of your research, your field. It's got to be something that you deeply care about. Otherwise, it gets very frustrated and you might just end up getting the job. It is also important to surround yourself, with similar-minded peers. Maybe it's not your family, but your friends who are researchers, your peer researchers who are also passionate about solving some issues, even though it's not on the same topic, but you can share your ups and downs, your fears, your frustration with them, and interest each other. I find, like I mentioned earlier that it's hard to manage time for research while you have other obligations as well. So procrastination, it's not just because you're lazy, because you don't have time to do it. So what I do is I tie myself up to some commitment. So I apply for research grant, I got it. So now I have a reason, to complete this paper.
Yeah, I think, like you said, we're lucky, right? We have jobs where we follow our own kind of independent interests and passions. I think one of the great things is we meet so many inspirational people, I think is the main thing that I really enjoy about what we do, especially in Cambodia. Lots of really cool trade unionists and activists that I work with. I really enjoy working with people like Netra, Riek, and TV. So that keeps us going, like our collaborators and our colleagues, our friends, and the people that we work with and that we look up to. When we feel a little bit down, we see the inspirational work that these people can do, and yeah, it pushes us to carry on, and have lunch with people, or go see someone inspirational talking about the issues that you're also passionate about.
Yeah, I think it's not different from Sabina and other friends here. It's about also relationship and energies, how to maintain a good communities. I think we are the average of 5 people we hang out with. So we hang out with the people who are energized by research, and we're gonna keep going. And then even though we do different research topics, slightly different, we can have something to share, and also values that come with it. So I think that's for me is help. Like now, I make friends when I do research, when I collaborate with people. I choose that to some extent they can be my friends. So I have to call them friends so that I can work with them closely. I don't want to work like let's do business together. I just don't like that kind of attitude. So yeah, so I like the people I work with.
That is really nicely put, because that would lead kind of fit neatly to what we have planned for the next session. The next round would be you really, who are the people you need to hang out with in order for you to keep this momentum. You're talking about peer, you're talking about supervisor, you're talking about mentor, we're talking about collaborator. This is really important, and the next session we will discuss that and bring in people who play different roles to actually discuss how do you make it work, because it's not easy as well, right, to make this work even among here, as we all so busy and sometimes so under pressure on so many commitments and demands and projects and reports that we don't even have time for coffee, to be honest. This is actually quite rare for us to meet as well, although we know each other for quite some time. So it's really important that human to human connection. And if I can also share a little bit, I still keep in touch with female leaders that I been interviewing them when I started work as a researcher at CDRI back in early 2000. They keep calling me when they have problems, sharing what's going on in their village, in their commune. And this female leader, they actually keep inspiring me that the thing that we are doing at CDI and the research that I'm doing here, this piece of information that we keep presenting to different stakeholders, whether foreigner, government official at senior level or other group people, it does bridge that gap because the communication, the level of engagement between different group of people in our societies are still quite vast. And our role a little bit, if I can reflect and it draw our inspiration too, is that bit of role that we play, you know, collecting information, understanding what they are going through, and writing them, organizing them, analyzing them in way that you can inform other people to do something about it. That is really quite the kind of motivation for me as well to keep doing this work at CDRI. So I would like to say thank you very much for our four fantastic speaker. It's really fantastic to see them sharing such a passionate, such a personal story, but also sharing and hearing the question from our audience too here and online. Thank you for spending time with us, and I look forward to the next discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, all participants here, as well as our moderators and speakers, and especially the participants in Zoom. So we hope that you will join us in our next seminars or events, and especially our research seminar tomorrow, which starts from 2 p.m. Until 4. Thank you all, and see you tomorrow. Thank you.